Hello, it's a Sunday morning here in the LeBlanc kitchen, and this morning I would like to show you how to make kale chips. Now, I don't call these kale chips because kale chips evokes, I don't want to eat kale. So I call these vegetable Doritos because they are tasty like Doritos, and that name just sounds more appealing to kids and other people. So today we're going to make vegetable Doritos. And so the first thing you got to do is set your oven to 300. So we'll get that preheated. 300. Get that going. Then you're going to want to make your spice blend. And now this is mostly based on nutritional yeast, which is a dead yeast. It's not used for baking or anything like that, but it's very high in fiber. There are 3 grams per quarter cup, and that's going to be the basis of our spice blend. And then we're going to put in some other things like garlic powder, onion flakes, so on and so forth. So let's do that first. Now this is going to make more than you actually need, and so I usually put the leftovers in a jar to use later, but I'm going to make some fresh for you. So we start off with 6 tablespoons, and you don't have to be overly scientific here. This is all to taste. If you like it, put more in. If you don't like it, put less. That's 3, 4, 5, so I'm putting some, I guess 6 is what I said. Putting some fairly large tablespoons of the nutritional yeast, sometimes called nooch. This has sort of a cheesy, umami-y taste to it, which is really important for the overall chip flavor. It's often used in vegan cheese, and so, and in fact, you will see yeast extract on like things like cheesies and Doritos, and this is what they're using to give it some of that flavor. So this is a really key ingredient for that, and tastes a lot better than it sounds. Next is 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. So 2 teaspoons, and again, you don't have to be real scientific with that, just a couple of scoops. All right, same amount of dehydrated onion flakes. You could use onion powder if you like. I like these because they absorb some of the moisture that we're trying to get rid of out of the kale as we dry them out into their more chip-like form. So 2 of those. They make a nice little like sort of bulky bit on the coating as well. Half a teaspoon now of chili powder. So this is my half teaspoon here. There we go, half of that. Half a teaspoon of smoked paprika. This gives it a nice little bit of hint of smoky flavor. That's a good trick for anytime you want to add a little smoky flavor, barbecue flavor when you're not barbecuing. Smoked paprika is not a bad way to add that. Half a teaspoon of pepper. I'm not even going to bother measuring that. I'm just going to give a bunch of cranks here. I like pepper, so we'll put a fair bit in there, but anyway, half a teaspoon-ish. There we go. Another half teaspoon of salt. I'd be generous with that. Maybe a little bit extra. And about a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne. So if you don't like it spicy, don't put any in. I'm just going to put a couple of shakes here. Obviously, if you like spicy, put more in. So that is it for the spice blend. And if you can smell that, it's got a nice like chip-like coating smell to it. It's got that nice, you know, when you get a Dorito or something with that thick layer, or chip with a thick layer of spices on it. That's what we're going to be going for with our kale chips. And this blend, yeah, if you could smell it, has a nice garlicky, oniony, chippy type smell to it, and similar taste. So I'm just mixing that up. Now again, that is more than we're going to actually use, and I'm going to put the rest back in my jar here. But you can put this on popcorn, you can do other things with it as well. Or if you want to make these chips again, you don't have to bother making the spice blend. You can just shake some on, which is what I normally would have done, except that I wanted to show you how to make it here this morning. So that's step one, a nice versatile spice blend. You put that on broccoli, other things too. Pretty nutritious there as well. There's really, other than the salt, is the only thing that's not so great for you in there, but not too bad. Next thing we want to prepare is the tahini mix. Now, tahini, if you've never used it, is ground up sesame seeds. And so there's some fiber in this as well. And so these kale chips are very fiber rich. And so I'm going to use a half cup for that. So about a half cup. Again, none of this needs to be, overly careful. So I like the tahini. Put about half a cup. A little slightly less there, but pour a little more so that I get there we go, what I'm missing, and that sticks. It's sort of like peanut butter, like runny peanut butter. If you've never used it, you've probably had it before. If you eat at places like Metza or any other kind of Lebanese or Eastern type restaurant, or if you've ever had hummus, it's a big part of that, and falafel. So anyway, it's really good on these chips as well. I'm going to set that aside. Now I'm going to take about half a lemon, and I'm going to give it a good squeeze. I don't want to get the seeds in there. Oh, I got a couple of seeds. So give that a good squeeze. And this is going to make, I'm going to pull that out. I washed my hands before we started. I'll wash them again. Got tahini and lemon juice on my fingers. And now you're going to stir that up, and you'll find that it thickens to a thick paste. So as I stir that, that lemon juice is denaturing proteins, similar to how milk curdles or an egg solidifies as it cooks. You can see now that that is much more paste-like, and that's what we want here. Give that a good stir so it's nice and mixed. I mean, I would eat that by itself. Smells really good with the lemon. I'm not a giant fan of lemon flavor in things, but these don't taste lemony. It just adds that nice little acid kick to the whole thing. So we've got our spice blend, we have our tahini blend, and that's basically it. So the idea is we're going to coat the kale once we cut it up in a little bit of oil. I'm going to use avocado oil. You can use olive oil, whatever you got. I'm using this because it's high in unsaturated fat, which is good for you. But so was olive oil. And then we'll coat it with a bit of the tahini paste so that we get some nice sticky stuff on there. And then lastly, we put the spices on so that they get really attached to that paste and the oil and stick well to the kale chips themselves. So the next thing we got to do is prepare the kale. Get a big bowl, a bunch of kale, and this is really easy. You just need to rip off pieces. So I washed this when I bought it a couple of days ago. You might be seeing some yellow on there, so I'm going to try to avoid some of that. And I left it out of the fridge for a day or two, maybe a little bit too long with some of the yellow in there. And I did that so that it starts to wilt a bit, because essentially what we're doing here is drying this kale out with all these spices on it, as opposed to, cooking it, harshly. So that's why the oven's only at about 300. I just want to dry these out slowly, more or less, so that we get a nice crispy piece of kale. So that's pretty good. So basically you just want to avoid that spine. And so sometimes I'll do this also to speed things along with some scissors as well. So just cut off the top, cut along the spine, cut along the spine again. And you want these pieces to be, chip-like, but you know, not too big, not too small. So any ones that you might have cut that are a little bit, you know, long like this, just kind of rip those up as you go. You'll have lots of opportunity for that. And essentially, this takes a minute or two. But once we're done this, we're almost set to put them together. Okay, now that I got my kale all ripped up into some nice chip-sized pieces, I am going to drizzle them with a little bit of oil. Again, I have actually no idea how much I put on here, you know, just a little drizzle. That'll help crisp things up. And then I'm going to really get my hands in there and try to get these all, you know, get a little bit of oil on them so that when they hit that oven, we're almost air frying them in a sense. And you could make these in an air fryer too, for sure. Just that you're sort of limited in size and how many you can make, because these are going to shrink. This isn't going to make a giant bowl. And often I would do 2 or 3 packages or bundles of kale, especially if you can find purple kale. I like the purple curly kale and the green to go together. It looks really nice, and you get those extra vitamins and antioxidants from the purple coloring. So you can see here I got this mostly covered. You know, everything seems to have a nice little shine on it. And so the next thing I'm going to do is basically just scoop out a bunch of my paste. And I like this, and it tastes good when it's all dried out. In fact, sometimes I'll dry out some of just the leftover pieces and eat them like a biscuit almost. It tastes pretty good. But now you just want to do the same thing. You want to get this as coated as possible. Now it won't stick as well as the oil does. You kind of got to get in there and kind of really rub it into the curls there, and also make sure that your pieces aren't folding in on each other. So you got to be a little bit tedious at this part, but it's worth it. So I'm just gonna again get in there, take a little more, and this is one where I basically use it all anyway, even if it is too much, because I do like the taste. Put that on, get those good and coated. Do it with the last of it here. Scoop that up. And again, I'm just trying to get that all on there, on as many pieces as I can. Okay. If you look, you can see here that this is a pretty good one. It is got a nice sheen on it from the oil, and you can see that there is a coating of the tahini mix on there as well. Now it's not perfectly coated, none of them will be, but you want to have that kind of consistency throughout. Now lastly, you basically just put on as much spices as you would like, and so I like them nice and spicy, so I'm going to put on a fair bit. Remember that the nutritional yeast has a lot of fiber in it. There's also supplemental B vitamins as well, so these kale chips end up being quite high in both B vitamins and kale chips. And now I'm just tossing these lightly so you can see, again, that spice will start coating because of all the sticky stuff that we've already put onto the kale. So I'm going to keep tossing that. Again, I want to get those spices in the crinks of the curls and stuff, because that's what will taste really good. Put a little more on. Again, that's all to your taste, and of course any of the spices. If you think, oh, you know what would be good, oregano on that, I love oregano, or basil, or whatever else, you know, you can put whatever your heart's delight is on these sort of things. So we're basically there. I'm just going to put a little more on, and hopefully you can see there that is good and coated. And now I'm going to take, excuse me, a pan, and I got a piece of parchment paper on there, and I'm basically now just going to lay these out, and I'm going to try to keep them as separate from each other as possible, because I don't want them to steam. As they get in that heat, they're going to release the moisture in them, and I don't want them to then just be collecting the moisture from their neighbor. I want them to all be drying out. And so that will involve a fair bit of monitoring when they are in the oven. You're gonna have to check them about every 10 minutes, kind of swish them around because there'll be some drier ones and some wetter ones still, and so you want to swish that around until they're all about consistently done. You'll find if they're not done when you finish these, if you're eating them and they're chewy, that means they needed to be kept in a little bit longer. One thing to note is when you're cooking these, you'll know if you've gone overboard because the smell will change. You'll be smelling them cook. You can smell all the stuff that we've put on it, and then all of a sudden it'll start to smell a little more burnt, and that's a sign that either there's parts of them are too hot, so you should swish them around if they haven't been in too long. But if they've been in a while, it does mean that they're probably as done as they're going to get. So I'm going to put those on there again as separate as I can, and so that's about as full as I want that tray. There's still a little more in here, so I'll have to do another round, but I will not bother you with that on the video. So I'm gonna just give my hands a quick wash, and then I'm gonna throw these in the oven, and we'll see how they turn out. My hands were pretty dirty there. Okay, oven at 300, and these are going in. Set the timer for 10 minutes, and I will come check them then. Okay, we're about 10 minutes in. Oh, you see that steam coming off. There we go. And now these are definitely not done. So you want to see how floppy that still is. So you just want to swish things around and make sure that, maybe even turn some of them over. Sorry for the poor camera work here, but these are definitely not done. So you want to leave those in for at least another 10 minutes and then check on them. They should certainly not be soggy. And the smell you can smell about this point is how it should smell. If you starts to notice a change from here, you'll know that some of them are getting overdone. So I'm going to swish these around and then put them back in for 10 minutes. And I'll probably do that a couple more times until we get to the final product, which I'll show you next. It's about 25 minutes later, so 35 minutes total cook time here. And you can see that they have a nice brown color, that they are basically dried up and they look pretty crispy. And so they are ready to eat. If you do want to save these or have them as a snack for later, you definitely want to let them sit out for a couple hours. You want all of that extra water, extra moisture to evaporate off before you put them away. Even if they're just even a little bit warm, even to your touch, they don't feel real warm, but just a little bit, and you put them in a bag, they'll all go soggy, and they're really no good when they're like that. So you will want to let those sit for as long as you can before you end up putting them away, which can be hard because you're going to want to eat all of these. These are really tasty. In my in-person class, this is always one where the students are surprised at how good they are, and most common response is, these are way better than I thought they would be. And in fact, some of them have gone home to make them themselves as well. So I'd encourage you to give these a try. These are fiber rich, they are nutrient dense, they're a great alternative to potato chips. So try my Andrew's recipe for vegetable Doritos and let me know how it goes. Thanks a lot. Delicious.